Hi, it's Anne. Thanks for stopping by. Today, we are going to be making mini file pockets. Okay, I don't know if that's really a thing, but we're calling it a thing today. They're not exactly mini file folders because they're going to be sealed on the sides. They're actual pockets, but they're going to be reminiscent of something that in an old office where paper record keeping was the norm, we might have found them in those file cabinets. Let me show you what inspired this. My friend Laurie, a few weeks ago, I saw her at an event and she pulled out, she actually had, bless her, she had them in an old cereal bag, and she's a green-hearted soul. Using recycled materials to deliver these to me. She had a stack of old documents. And apparently her brother-in-law purchases these and looks through them for things of historical significance. And these were all leftovers and things that did not have historical significance. But Laurie is a very creative person and a collage artist, and he gave these to her. And she, knowing my propensity for old vintage things, saved these for me. And I just, these are things this is something from 1956. Actually, this is from a document from just a few days after I was born. Isn't that funny? A few weeks before I was born. 56, what a big year. Anyway, all kinds of just interesting order forms, invoices, just business records that I think are going to be great to work into junk journals. One of the things that just really kind of gave me goosebumps was looking at some of these old business letters. And of course, this is, decades and decades before email, before things could be cut and pasted, before there is any kind of, boilerplate mass mailing kind of anything. And each letter, and these are originals, individually typed, and each piece, the secretary, and I'm just going to assume that the secretaries were women because most of them were. The bosses, whoever was signing the letter, the boss's initials would come first, and after it would come the initials of the secretary. I think the only reason the secretary got her initials on there was because if there was something wrong or a typo, they knew how to go back to and yell at. So. It was not a form of recognition. I think it was a form of accountability. But each letter, the person who did the typing, who did the filing, who made certain that these things got out flawlessly, her initials are just down there as a little bit of a code. So this one, WMN, the boss, is the first one, and that's William M. Noonan. But mysteriously behind him, the person who made the whole piece of correspondence happen, one by one, individually produced, initials VEY. So Violet Elizabeth Yastrzemski or something. It's baseball season, so maybe I'm channeling Carl Yastrzemski of the Boston Red Sox from many years ago. Anyway, we're just going to call her Violet because those are her initials there. But she's the one that made each of these things happen. And I was thinking about some of the history and some of the soul that is just infused into some of these old documents. So I thought, let me make sort of an office-themed pocket journal card sort of thing that can go into our junk journals, where we can kind of reflect on some of that energy and just do a little storytelling in our mind. So anyway, so Laurie was so sweet to give me all of these wonderful things. I'm going to be using them for a long time, but I especially want to just to recognize her for having provided me with all of these wonderful documents. Let's start with the base of these pockets. And I ran across at the thrift store not long ago these index cards. I think you saw these in a recent video. I took them and I just sprayed coffee on them and set them outside. But I love the graph paper print on these index cards. So I thought, why don't we glue two of them together into a pocket, but let's offset the top a little bit so we have some sticking up. I'm going to really be distressing this so we can, tell that it's a pocket, but it's going to sort of mimic a file folder that is actually sealed up on the sides. So I want to offset the height on these, and I'm going to cut a little bit off of the bottom here. Not too much, but a little bit. And that's going to form the front part of our pocket. And I love that these coffee stained index cards are just going to indicate that they've been around, they've been around the office, and we are going to give them even more of that look. But we're also going to be channeling some of the elegance, some of the graciousness that I'm going to boldly assume that Violet Elizabeth Yastrzemski and her secretarial sisterhood brought to the office each day. What was this business that we're calling her Violet? Whitman's Chocolates. Oh my golly, I bet poor Violet, every Christmas, her boss probably very unimaginatively gave her a box of Whitman's chocolates, and she was probably sick of them. She was probably like, oh, thank you. I'd rather have a raise or a day off or childcare. But anyway, different times. But it's, it's really important, I think, to, reflect on some of the things that our sisters from so long ago, what their working conditions were like. And they probably, had some really good times in those offices, but they put up with a lot too. Anyway, let's get the front. You can see where we're going to be putting this file pocket together. I want to distress the front and kind of give it sort of the ethos of business. So I'm not putting, we're not going to put any lace or anything on here, but we are going to have a little touch of elegance in a moment. This is just a rubber stamp that I had on hand that just has a bunch of text and numbers, and I suppose I should put something underneath here. So we're just going to kind of business up this this background. There we go, and that's kind of ghostly in the background. Then what I want to do is I want to add in a little bit of fabric. I want to add in some fabric and a flower. And, but first I'm going to bring in, oh gosh, I hate to rip this, but I'm gonna, oh, sorry, Violet. There we go. We're just gonna tear off a bit of this letter, and we're gonna make a little bit of a collage, a little bit of a cluster in the corner. Oh yeah, I kind of like that. So let's distress that edge. And we're going to put a flower on top of this and a little bit of fabric, because what we want to do is sort of represent a little bit of gentility that our friend Violet has brought. Let's get Violet's initials. And this is an original. I mean, she held this piece of paper. She did this typing. And we're just going to tear off this little bit of her and preserve that and elevate it and think about what her life was like. She probably wasn't paid very well, but her family was probably very proud of her. Oh, Violet's got a good job in Philadelphia in 1952. Let's put this little bit over here. Now for this little cluster, I want to choose a little bit of fabric that might represent something kind of feminine, something kind of elegant, something kind of genteel. I think this is it. And we're going to put just a little scrap of fabric here and a little scrap as a tab. Is that going to rip for us? Not quite. Let's start again. This strip only needs to be about this long at the most. So let me rip that, and it's going to be just kind of representing a little bit of beauty, a little bit of, here we go, a little bit of niceness. Bread and roses, how about that? We're going to put this here, and then I'd like to go into these flowers and have something there. I want that juxtaposition of a little bit of beauty, a little bit of freshness, just a tiny little bit of nature. You know, Violet, you know, with her name, that's a flower. I mean, obviously, I made all that up. I don't know if her name might be Veronica or Vicky or any number of other V names, but Violet, she is in my mind, and I think I'd like to just kind of make that a little bit of a cluster right there. Let's glue this down, shall we? And then we'll assemble our whole thing and then add just a little bit of more officiness. That is not a word. Please don't start using that word. There is no such word as officiness. I should be ashamed even saying that. I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac to put here on this little strip of fabric. And here we go. Got this little bit of the letter that she typed up. A little bit of fabric. And maybe she brought in, flowers from her garden, her parents' garden, if she was a young gal still living at home. This is going to be just paper to paper, so I'm bringing in the art glitter glue to get our little mini cluster there. So definitely a business theme on this whole thing, but there's a little bit of niceness there too. Should we put a little pearl on there? I've got some pearls over here. I think I might want to add just a little bit of pearl there because I'm guessing she wore some nice, she might have, maybe for her graduation from secretarial school, she might have gotten some faux pearls or something. And let's just put that there, and that's going to represent just a little touch of elegance there at the Whitman Chocolate Factory. Should we do let's do a little bit of stamping. I've got a few kind of businessy looking stamps over here that I have ready. Form 71. Do not cut. Don't want to have too much here, but I think 3 little, this is just one of those library stamps that I have. Just dialed a bunch of numbers onto. There we go. And then the last thing I think I'd like to do is I kind of want to put, make it look like there's a coffee stain. And I'm sure that Violet never would have sullied her, her file pockets with actual coffee, but maybe if they were sitting in on Mr. Noonan, what was his name? Mr. Noonan's desk, he might have been a little more casual about this. So I have just a core of a washi tape, and let's just kind of pretend that's a coffee stain there. Coffee cup stain, I should say. There we go. Now, where was that larger piece? I'm going to put these together, and then we're going to put a little more fabric up there. Now these, for using these in a junk journal, they're going to be a little bit wide. You could put them vertically as a tuck spot, but I am thinking that these could be more journal, pocketed journal cards. You could write on the back. You could write on the back and then tuck them into a pocket. The next one we're going to do is going to be a little bit smaller, so that could serve as a pocket itself. Now let's put the pull tab on here, because this is what I was really thinking about in terms of it adding sort of a little unexpected bit of gentility. And that's putting this up here as a pull tab. But I'm going to staple it in place. So I'm putting a little bit of glue stick there. Do not depend on glue stick to keep this in place for long, but it doesn't have to. It's just going to hold it there temporarily until we have, just a little bit too long, until we've stapled it in place. You know, when we're doing projects like this, I just really think it is fun. It inspires some of our choices that we make for putting visual elements together. If we do that little storytelling, you know, it doesn't have to be anything we journal about. But, you know, so if we can just kind of think about some of the story behind the pieces that we're working with, it can just really inspire us to make something. And I think that energy does come through. I'm just going to staple this here and here. This is a very small stapler. It is not the famous stapler. It is a famous tiny stapler. It is much less expensive. There we go. There's Violet's initials there. And there's a little bit of her work. It represents office and business and commerce being done, but there's a little touch of elegance there. She might have some flowers on her desk. She might be wearing her pearls. She might have just a pretty blouse or pretty summer dress on that adds some elegance to her day. I'm loving this. Again, this can go into a pocket. You can put other things in here. I think it might be really nice to put maybe some folded yellow legal, part of a legal paper in there that you could do some journaling on. I love this. Let's make another one, but let's make one a little bit smaller. These are only 5 inches wide, and these are just regular size coffee stained index cards, but because they're shorter, they can fit on a more of a regular sized journal page. Oh, do I have a journal around here? This old guy. We see a lot of him. Yeah, that can fit nicely there. Yep, we'll distress those edges so it'll pop a little bit more. Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna trim off the bottom so it can be a little bit shorter. My God, I got stuff flying everywhere. Now, we were talking about Mad Men the other day, and one of my viewers said she enjoyed Mad Men as well. And boy, that really showcased the office culture and how women were treated, at least in the 60s, and it must have been even more so earlier than that. But there were worse jobs. Jobs in service were a lot worse. So I'm sure those early secretaries probably recognized their privilege about being able to work in an office. Even if the social conditions were probably not that great. But okay, here is our smaller file pocket. We'll put fabric here and here, but let's follow the same format because I did like that. Let's go back to the document that Laurie gave me. And let's take some of this. And see how much we can get into our cluster. There, with just part of the logo. Oh, look, Man's Chocolates. I'm sure it felt that way for Violet. There we go. I think that's going to fit nicely there. But let's do a little bit of our stamping over here. What I want to use something different. What do I have? I've got, this looks like a check. Stamp some of this on my scrap paper here. First National Bank from Lafayette, Indiana. Yeah, let's put that here. And let's see, is this a check also? Sometimes these little stamps, it's impossible to tell what they are until you sample them. That looks like some sort of a receipt. Yeah. And maybe I'll pull, oh, here that is. I got this interesting set of small stamps recently, mostly for the word ticket, but there's all kinds of kind of interesting office-y sorts of things in there too. Again, I'm using words that do not exist. Let's put important here. And let's begin with our cluster. It's Whitman's Man's Chocolate. Oh, Violet. There's a flower. Well, let's decide what kind of fabric we want to have here. This might be nice. That might be nice. Let's cut off a little piece we'll use for our tab. We'll set that aside. And then we'll tear off a little piece that'll be sort of representative of her pretty summer wear. And for some reason, it's making me think of A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. Because at the end of that wonderful book, Francie was working in an office, and there was lots of descriptions of what she wore, what her aunts had bought for her to wear at her office job. She was a proofreader because she was such a good reader, and wonderful descriptions of her office responsibilities, and how she felt about certain things, and recognition that she got. Should we pick up a little bit of that blue? Yeah, I'm feeling okay about that. So let's layer up our cluster. Use our Fabri-Tac to adhere our flower down. Thinking of the tree grows in Brooklyn. There was another scene early in that wonderful, poignant novel when Francie, good reader that she was, would go to the library because she was on a mission to read all the books in the library. And the librarian had a bowl of nasturtiums, a brown bowl with nasturtiums in them. It brought just that little bit of beauty into her library job. And every summer when I grow my own nasturtiums, as I always do, I think of those scenes and that bit of freshness, that bit of beauty that would come into jobs with these women, brightened their day. Let's put another pearl in there. I'm enjoying that idea. This one has a little bit of adhesive on it yet. There we go. Now what did I do with my original? That's still, there we go. Little bead of glue around the edge, plenty of room for a pocket, and this can go right down onto a journal page, a standard size journal page. Again, because it's only 5 inches across. And then let's put our little tab on here. It's fun to find ways to work fabric into our junk journal pages. That's a little bit, maybe I'll put it this way instead. That's going to be, I guess we'll go with one that's just a little bit taller, and then we'll staple it in place. But yeah, fabric can be challenging because I didn't want sewing. I didn't want stitching on this. That just didn't seem to fit the kind of office-y ethos of the whole thing, because you wouldn't, even though an office worker could you could bring flowers into the office, you could wear a pretty summer dress, but you weren't going to be actually sewing. What did I do? Oh, there we go. So I didn't feel like stitching was going to be appropriate. There we go. 1 staple, 2 staple. Easy, easy, easy. Look at this. And although our Violet's initials were on the other one, we still have some of her work and some of her typing. And what she did was important. Yes, it was. So I think I'm just going to keep doing these. Look at, I've gotten 2 wonderful pieces out of just this one thing that Laurie gave me. And I just think I think I'm going to do more. Again, this one we can write on the back and we can put into a pocket, and this one can be the pocket itself, or however you wish to use it. These would be fun to stuff full of goodies and to send to a friend as well. Enjoy these, guys, and we'll talk to you soon.